Greeting YouTube. The President of the United States, Barack Obama, is not a Muslim. Now, it wouldn't really matter if he were. It has no bearing whatsoever on his ability to do his job as president. But the fact is that he is not a Muslim. You would be asking, why am I bringing this point up? Well, according to the Pew Institute, and that's PEW, they do a lot of polling in America, and they're very thorough in their data collection and their filtering. The latest poll by the Pew Institute shows that 18% of Americans believe that Barack Obama is Muslim. 34% believe that he's Christian, which is what he is, and 43% are unaware of what faith he is. I can't really decide if that 43% are just ignorant or they just don't care because it doesn't matter. Either one of those could be interesting. But the 18% that believe he's a Muslim is a lot more interesting. And you could be asking yourself, now how could this 18% of the American population think that he's a Muslim when he isn't? And I think that's a deliberate endeavor on the part of the political right. Then you also be asking, how did they achieve this? They achieved this through the classic use of what is known as the big lie. Now, the big lie concept is pretty simple. If you say something often enough and loudly enough, people will believe you. Doesn't matter if what you're saying is absolute bunk. If you say it enough and you say it loudly enough, people will listen. And eventually, the lie becomes self-perpetuating. Eventually, people start looking at the lie and they're thinking, this piece of information has been around for weeks or months or years. It must be true. And so then it just keeps rolling and snowballing right on down the line. All the while gaining more and more credibility, even though it is absolutely fictitious. Now, I think better questions are why does the political right want Americans to think Barack Obama is a Muslim? And I think there are two reasons. The first is the fact that to many Americans, the word Muslim is synonymous with the word terrorist. This is depressing, seeing as that there are only a handful of Muslims in the world who are violent and dangerous, and there are over 1 billion of them who are moderate, peace-loving people like everybody else. So by linking Barack Obama's name, his image, with the word Muslim, the political right wants to associate in people's mind, at the very least, that he has some kind of connection to Muslims who are terrorists in the American subconscious, and at worst, he is actually supporting or aiding and abetting Muslim terrorists to harm Americans, which is something that the political right would love for Americans to believe, particularly seeing as that he's going to be running for re-election someday. But there is a deeper and a more insidious reason for what they're doing. And I see that as the reason being they're sculpting reality. Because if you can control facts, if you can convince someone that black is white, or up is down, or left is right, you sculpt their view of reality. You replace the real world with a faux world, with an image, a phantom, a glimmer, a glamour. Something that isn't real, but you give it such credence, such credibility, that people believe it. And they act upon that belief. So the political right, by doing this, is firstly experimenting with the process and perfecting the process. Because they were able to convince the American people that there were weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, and thus justifying in the American minds an illegal war that costs tens of thousands of Iraqi lives and thousands of American lives. They were able to convince the American people that funneling billions of dollars into the pockets of private health insurance companies was better than a single-payer system that would have actually provided health care for all Americans, instead of allowing 18,000 of them to die every single year. Interestingly, I encountered a conservative recently who actually came at me saying that if I'm upset with the deaths that are caused by our completely utter failure of a healthcare system, that I should be upset with Obama, because since the plan that was recently enacted will not be fully in place until 2013, that Obama is to blame for all the deaths between now and 2013. Even though it has been the conservatives in America that have blocked healthcare reform for the last century. 100 years they have blocked healthcare reform in America. And yet this conservative wants me to believe that Obama is to blame for that, for policies that were enacted decades before he was ever born. That right there is sculpting reality, folks. That conservative believed, or at least convincingly told me, so I think he believed, that Obama is somehow to blame for the healthcare policies that were put in place by conservatives in our nation. That's what I mean about changing people's view of reality. And that is dangerous. So when people tell you something, a news source, a newspaper, television, radio, me, someone tells you something, question it. Ask, what does this person or news source have to gain if I believe what they say? What do they get out of it? And then go find some of your own research. Go look at some other reports. See, okay, if there are 5 or 6 different people saying this, there's a good chance that maybe, if all these different news sources are saying it, it's the real thing. Poke at the numbers. Peel back a few layers and see what you can find. Question me if you'd like. I'm open to those kind of things. Because if you don't, you're letting someone else decide what reality is. You're letting someone else decide what the facts are, which are not in dispute, folks. Facts are facts. Opinions can be argued, but facts cannot. But if you let people switch out the real facts for faux facts, then you have a problem. Then reality itself becomes unhinged. And at the end of that process, we end up with people saying things like, we've always been at war with Eastasia.